Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Authors on the Air. I'm James Latwell, your host, and this is part of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. And we have with us Dr. Suzana Flores, and she is the author of Untamed, the Psychology of Marvel's Wolverine. And it's kind of timely with the new Deadpool and Wolverine movie coming out. Um, yeah, it's a little fun to look behind the scenes at some of these things and makes you kind of wonder what's really going on back there. Could you tell us a little bit about the book and the story there?
Yes. So I decided I'm a psychologist, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I decided to analyze Logan as if he were a real person. And once I got interested in the subject, I just dove in, and it's a lot of comics. And luckily, I have friends that are geeks and who could hook me up with people to interview, luckily the creators, minus Herb Trumpy, but I got all the other creators. So like Len Wein, John Romita, Senior, Roy Thomas, etc., and the important writers and inkers and illustrators, right? But his story, it's interesting because he is PTSD personified, and I'm a trauma specialist, so that's what got me interested in the subject. He's surly, he's mean, he's loyal, right? He's a great friend, but then he backs off because he doesn't want to be abandoned again or triggered or hurt, which is PTSD. And so we did the psychology of torture because this character was tortured. That was kind of dark, right? I needed a Disney movie after that chapter. My favorite is X-Men, oppression and the M word, as their metaphors for the oppressed in America, among other things. And his ability to he joins teams and he's great at it. But I think what drew me most to the character is he does the bloodbaths that no one else wants to do, right? He's the muscle, the enforcer. And so as one of the illustrators mentioned, it's like he's judge, jury, and executioner, and that is a lot of weight. So he has to decide in seconds, like who lives, who dies, and he has to live with that. And he's immortal-ish until the last Logan, right? He was immortal, and then he's back, right? That's what these characters do. But for hundreds of years, he has to carry that, which is not easy. Which is probably another reason why he separates himself from people, because he doesn't want them to be hurt.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, and you do get you see a lot of that in the character, on the screen, and then you start to really dive in. And it's like there's some real PTSD damage going on here, and it's kind of a way to express that and make people recognize what that really is, because it's pretty pervasive out there, and people just don't give it the attention that it needs.
Right.
What drew you? Yeah. What drew you as a psychologist to write this book? I mean, what was the inspiration to do that?
It's a great question, because I remember I was in line to meet with John Romita Jr., legendary John Romita Jr., and he asked me, "So why Wolverine?" I said, well, because Batman's the biggest from DC, and I wanted to do the biggest or most popular character from Marvel, and it's interesting and it's a whole world, etc. And he paused and he said, "That's wonderful. Now tell me why you really wrote about Wolverine." Right, and the long pause. And the reason I wrote about Wolverine, I've never been a geek in my whole life. I do remember the X-Men as a little kid. But I've never done the comic books, never did conventions, etc. But there was a time where I myself was assaulted, and psychologists or therapists were not immune to everything that everybody else goes through, right? So depression, fear was enabling, and just people, judging me, or it was just a very bad time. And I remember a friend of mine, Al Padilla, mentioned, you're like Wolverine, and I'm like, what? Right. And he said, very, very much so. And so I was walking down the street, and I saw outside a comic book store, the panel, from Hellfire Club, where he's beaten in battle, like he's in the sewer, right? And which is hard to do, like to beat Wolverine. And then the claws come out, schnick, right? As the sound is, and and it was more the scowl that really drew me. That scowl, like, and he says, "Okay, suckers, now it's my turn." Right, and he climbs up from the sewers, and he goes all Mount St. Helens on his enemies, right? And I stared at it for a while, and I caught like the mythology of it. It's like I wanted Wolverine to be my friend, right? I didn't want Superman. Superman is he's too perfect, right? He would take the bad guys to the authorities because that's the right thing to do, right? I wanted muscle. I wanted that, and I just remember thinking, I want that. I want to be him.
Yeah.
And that was the main draw. And who would have known? Like, if you asked me, like 10 years ago, would I ever relate to the short, hairy, like surly mutant, right, with like super claws? I'd be like, no. And I related to him so much, and learned to love the character through this process.
That's interesting. It kind of leads to my next question is, there's something to be learned from graphic novel and comic book characters, and it really relates a lot to what we go through in life.
Yes.
Have you found that to be true?
Yes, I think it's modern mythology. It's modern mythology. Like, they represent our fears. I mean, if you think of like Spider-Man and everything that he's gone through, or even like Batman. I like the anti-heroes. Most people, I guess, like the anti-heroes because they're damaged, but so are we, right? Who hasn't been damaged or looked down on or oppressed in some way? So they represent to me like resiliency. So you have like these life challenges, and trying to fit in, and just trying to protect those you love, and all the confusion, especially with the mutants, that go along with it. Like, they want to be like others, and then they don't want to be like others, and then they are oppressed by the humans, and then they keep protecting them because they believe that one day, right, they will be equals. And not that mimics current society, or society since the beginning, right? Like, you have individuals that will look down on others, and those that keep trying to rise above it. So yes, they absolutely mimic or express the human condition.
No, I find that true also. It's interesting as that reflection. Now, what is it about Wolverine, or maybe it's Hugh Jackman? What is it about that character that draws this huge fan base?
I think there's a lot of masculinity with him, and I think that's one of the things. And he is a badass. Hopefully I can say that, right? He's one with his badassery, which is what everybody wants. Truly, like each character represents a part of who we are, especially the X-Men. I am obviously biased towards the X-Men, but like, I think Professor X's, like his ability to read thoughts and move things or whatever, that's kind of like representing our intuition, or our, like, the deja vus, or all of that, like, our perception, or empaths, so to speak, right? Wolverine is hurt, and he has what we would call, psychologists would call, dissociative amnesia, right? Like, so he fights battles, and then he forgets sometimes. And so, like, how do you evolve, or how do you learn if you don't have that memory of that battle? Like, how do you evolve? So that's particularly, I think that's what makes him unique, is like, we all evolve, but like, he's limited in that aspect. But despite that, he keeps trying to become a better man. So through the mentorship of Professor X, like, he is learning to try to tame the beast, right? Hence the title Untamed, right? He's trying to, and becomes a samurai warrior, and learning martial arts or so, to try to center himself. So despite all of his I don't want to say shortcomings, but like challenges, he still moves forward. So he represents not just trauma, but he represents strength.
No,
and
that's
it's Hugh Jackman.
and it's Hugh Jackman, right?
And it's Hugh Jackman,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Could you show us your coffee cup or your water cup that you have?
Yeah. So I there it is, right? I had to have it. So I went to go
Yeah.
see the Deadpool movie twice now. I'm going to see it many more times. I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was like one of the best depictions of Wolverine, the way that he was supposed to be, right? You know, vicious.
Okay.
The movie Logan also really captured that more than other X-Men movies. But these two, right, like Deadpool and Wolverine, they're very similar, except one, you know, they have a hard time dying, right? And they are the muscle. They have the sharp things, you know. And it's an interesting pairing. One is very surly and angry, you know, has a short fuse, and the other one is a jokester of all jokesters and is sarcastic, and he's called the mouth,
Yep.
for that reason. So it's an interesting pairing, but it was so well done.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I haven't seen it yet, but I plan to because I like I like the interaction between Deadpool and Wolverine. That back and forth and that sarcastic banter. I mean, it's really fun.
Oh yeah, and seeing these two try to kill each other, battle each other. I hope that's not too much of a spoiler, but I'm sure people knew
Yeah,
that, you know, that'd be a part of the movie.
that's
You know, they
yeah,
can't.
absolutely.
How long can they stand each other, right? And so that was funny. It was really funny and interesting. Like, how long could this possibly last? You know, a very long time, because they keep healing. You know, so it's so good.
That's fun. Now, as a clinical psychologist, now turned author, that's not necessarily a common path. What did that take for you to undertake this, and what was your path to publication like?
Okay, so it all started like I was a marathoner, and then many moons ago, and I got injured, seriously injured, and developed physical pain, which is another thing I have in common with Wolverine. You know, pain is a friend, like a longtime friend of his and mine. So I have chronic pain, and so I needed something else. Like I needed a passion, and once I, you know, actually what it was the first book, Face Hooked, and it was on the psychology of social
Hmm.
media, how it affects us
Right.
emotionally. Because clinically, we were seeing it everywhere. Like this was the new thing in our field. Like people were getting paranoid and anxious and having panic attacks and trying to decipher what's real, what's not. As we're going through, you know, today or so, you know, but so I am like, okay, I am going to learn how to write. I kept talking about it, and my friends were like, please just put this on page and stop talking about this phenomenon. So I'm like, and this is how elementary it was for me. I bought a book on how to write a nonfiction book, no lie. Right? And that is, and then I had to figure out how to write a query. You know, well,
Yeah.
first, how to find a real agent, like Good Agents. You know, there's a super big book that that guides us. And so I had to go through all of that. And what's interesting is I sent the query, right, without having the proposal fully ready, but I just did it to get over the fear, right? And I was like, okay, send.
Yeah.
And unbelievably enough, in about like that same day, I got called, you know, because it was an interesting idea. And I was like, okay, so send over
Yeah.
the proposal. And I was like, funny story, I don't have it, you know, because you weren't supposed to contact me that quickly, right? I heard it could
Right.
take forever, right? And then so Liz, that's my agent, and she was laughing, and she's like, okay, well, send it over. And I think she herself was like, okay, you need a little help because this is not, I'm not trained in this, you know. So I learned over time the hard way, a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
So Untamed, I think, is a by far superior book in the sense of writing. It just took a lot of practice, as you know. Right? You look at your earlier stuff and you're like, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I could have taken the much better, right? But it evolves. It evolves, and
It does.
and now I'm presenting at Comic Cons and I'm doing all this other fun stuff, including interviewing with you, that I would have never done. And so I think, you know, as we help our teach our clients, like you can't get married to one identity. You have to be
Yeah.
able to evolve, you know, to learning other skills because it's, you know, there are several different passions. So it was very hard. But I learned over time, but very elementary. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different business model. I mean, we both come from different backgrounds and different careers, and this is a whole new world. And yeah, it takes a while to navigate that, and but you've managed it. You've come out the other side of this and relatively unscathed. So that's a good thing.
You know what I discovered that all writers seem to have in common is like imposter syndrome, or
Oh,
like the self doubt. I wanted to grab the keyboard and like slam it to my forehead, right? Like I'm a fraud. I don't know what I'm
yeah,
doing. And then the deadlines come, right? And then you freak out, right? Like there is this freak out moment, and you have moments where you write something, and I'm like, damn, I'm good. I'm actually pretty good at this, right? And then other moments, and you just stare at the screen, and it's torture. So
right.
it's art, right? And it takes time to craft and develop. So that was interesting to me. Like I didn't realize I had that so ingrained in me, like that imposter syndrome.
Oh
I
yeah,
remember Liz a few times, like, well, I'm not a writer, and I'm not a writer, and she's like, you're published twice. You have to stop saying that. And even if you weren't published, you are a writer. And I was
you
like,
are
okay,
right.
okay, I'm a writer, so I'm an author.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody that I know, has that same down deep down in their core. It's like, oh, this is going to be the book that they discover I'm a fraud. This is the
Yeah.
one. Yeah, everybody has that. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun to live with.
Right. And I also
So
thought it
you
was going to be
mentioned,
torn apart by comic book fans. Like, I'm going to
yeah.
get something wrong, and I did. I actually,
Oh,
like there's a couple of errors, and I'm like, I did my best. That's all I could do.
yeah, and you mentioned, now you're presenting at Comic-Con. I mean, 10 years ago, would you ever have imagined that you'd be at this huge fan conference for graphic novels and comics and you'd be presenting there?
No, never in a minute. Like I said, it wasn't my world at all, and I've been so lucky enough and privileged enough to present at the big one, San Diego Comic Con, when I was invited
Yeah.
on certain panels. Women on the Dark Side was a great one. And there's many great ones. And then New York. And to have here's one of the most fulfilling moments. Like I love to be in front of a mic, right? Like I can talk all day. And it was just great telling this tale and sharing about what I think is the psychology and mythology of superheroes and villains. But what was most endearing to me and close to my heart and made the work worth it would be people coming up to my booth when I'm signing books and taking a long pause and just saying, what happened to you happened to me. I
Mm,
see I'm gonna get like choked up right now. And so like I come out of the booth and we hug, like we hug because we know what pain is,
yeah.
and so people would say, thank you for writing this book. And it's been amazing. I'm
Yeah.
glad
No,
my life journey took me here.
yeah, no, that's amazing when you have that kind of resonance with the people that are getting your book and they understand it and they get it, and that personal connection is hard to imagine, but
Yeah,
that's amazing.
even harder to imagine. Like at some place like San Diego Comic Con, they were searching for me. So I would announce I'm there, and then people were like, "Okay, it took me a minute to find you, but I found you." And I was like, "Wow!" Right?
Wow.
Just wow. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's pretty heady. Now, did I see something on social media recently that you've got another project that might be coming out that's dealing with Dr. Doom?
Yes, yes. So it's a project and work, and so I've been on hiatus for a long time. Again, trauma therapist. I had to slow down because I was too exhausted. 11 trauma patients a day. I had no energy to write, and
Yeah.
I had to prioritize the things that bring me joy, just like everybody does. And so I have changed that, and so now I had time to write. And again, it's so interesting. Like there's so many dynamics, and then of course recently Robert Downey Jr. came out like he's going to be Dr. Doom. I'm like perfect timing, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm working on that, the
Well,
psychology and many many things about our factors of Dr. Doom.
that's going to be fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be great. Now, we're going to end with something we call three quick hits, and that's
Okay.
three questions. And I'm going to ask you to answer this in the character of Wolverine. So, of
Okay.
Logan and Wolverine.
So as if I
Just
were
three.
Wolverine,
Yeah. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is going to be fun.
Um,
Okay. Let's go.
Yeah, just three quick things, and it's okay. What's Wolverine's favorite cocktail?
Oh my God, probably like whiskey, scotch,
Yep,
or
I can
or
see that.
almost anything. But yeah, you see them with the little clink, 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 right? So I would say whiskey or
Yep.
scotch.
Okay. How about Wolverine's favorite music? What does he listen to?
Let's see if Wolverine, what would he be into? I could see metal. I could see even jazz. Like when he dressed up like in the nice tuxedo and he was
Mm,
patched, very sophisticated. So maybe jazz as well. But
okay.
yeah, when he
Okay.
fights people, it's something rougher for sure.
Gotcha. And then finally, what's Wolverine or Logan's greatest fear?
Abandonment. I believe it is because he has been so many times, and he some people say like, okay, his greatest fear is Sabretooth, his super enemy, and it's like, no, he's afraid of getting close and then getting hurt. So the answer,
Got it.
vulnerability. He's afraid of his own vulnerability.
No, that makes perfect sense. Folks, we've been talking with Dr. Suzana Flores, the author of Untamed, the Psychology of Marvel's Wolverine. This has been a lot of fun, Susanna. Thank you for taking the time.
This has been fun. Thank you so much.
All right. And we'll see you again soon, I hope. Hopefully with a Dr. Doom book signing.
Great. I'm also working on a narcissism book, so like whichever one comes first. But yeah, thank you so much. I really am very grateful. So thank you.
Thank you. Take
All right.
care.
You too. Bye-bye.